Gobble gobble, fuck faces. Here we go. Alright. Star Trek 2. I remember the first Star Trek movie not really feeling like a movie, more like a long TV special. I mean, I gave it a 2.5. And granted, I did see it like a year ago, but I couldn't tell you anything. Except there's a 5-minute scene of the Starship Enterprise coming at the screen, or towards the screen, and Captain Kirk is just smiling like, yeah, oh yeah, this is cool. You know, like, the filmmaker knew what he was doing, because it was supposed to be a big moment, but it comes off as just boring and awful. Basically, it was forgettable. But holy shit. Star Trek 2, I mean, what a movie. I mean, it was a horror, a genuine action movie, no cheesy stuff. Like, it's an action sci-fi. And coming from someone who's never watched any of the show, masterpiece. I enjoyed it. 4 out of 5. Star Trek 3. Way to make Leonard Nimoy direct the movie all about himself. This movie is back to that feels like a TV show kind of feeling. It's filmed like a movie, but the lighting and the cinematography, it's just like that, and just the pizzazz, it just isn't there compared to how the second one was. Something I do really love is the balls these movies have, and how, like, some of the plots that they take, and they take it so far. For some reason, I was expecting just cheesy adventure movies, but so far, they've done some drastic things. The second one straight up killed several teammates on the ship and killed Spock, and the third one destroyed the Enterprise, one of the most iconic things of Star Trek. Now, Spock did come back to life in this movie, and I'm sure they're going to somehow bring back the Enterprise. It's cool to see IPs with iconic things being able to destroy said iconic things. Well, I enjoyed the story, the fact that it's a direct sequel, like it continues the story that we just finished. It's back to back, which doesn't happen a whole lot. And I also like Captain Kirk just stole the Enterprise. It's fun. And despite not being as good as the second, the third makes me excited to continue the franchise, which, speaking from experience, I'm talking about Dirty Harry, it doesn't happen too often. So, 3.5 out of 5. Star Trek 4. You have to like this movie just for the plot alone. Okay, ready? Whales are actually aliens. Alright? I got you hooked already. And the Star Trek the Star Trek crew has to, are you ready? Go back in time to the 20th century and steal 2 humpback whales and bring them to the future so the whale alien race can stop attacking Earth. It's funny because back in the 80s, saving the world was a very prominent part in cartoons and media, especially cartoons, and you can totally tell that's what this movie is aiming for. But they do it so incredibly well. It's not what I expected, and it's more of a comedy than anything, especially with the time travel. Like, of course, to make, people being asshole jokes, and the love interest, of course, comes back to the future with them. I didn't mean to say that. Whatever. There's so many cliches. In terms of it being good, I would say it's on par with the third Star Trek, like a 3.5, but oh boy, is it genuinely enjoyable. So I'm not saying it's better than the second, it's not really, but I'm giving Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home, a 4 out of 5, but 2 still reigns on top. Star Trek 5. Not as good as the others, and I think the main reason is that there's nothing and a lot going on at the same time. You have 2 somewhat villains, the Klingons and Socks. Oh, Spocks! Oh my god. In my notes I wrote Socks. I'm keeping it. The Klingons and Socks half-brothers. What? Half-brothers? God damn it. The Klingons and Socks half-brother wanted to find... Hold on. The whole joke is ruined. I'm going to start over. You have 2 somewhat villains. The Klingons and Spock's half-brother wanting to find fucking God of all people. Like God himself. Heaven almighty God. But then all of that just leads to, I don't have a lot else to say about this one except for 3 out of 5. Star Trek VI, the final of the original crew Star Trek movies. It was really solid. From the same director as the second Star Trek, he brings everything I loved about it. A serious sci-fi with a bit of grimy action. It's definitely a slower paced movie and basically a murder mystery for a bit, which I think was done very well. But unfortunately, I can't rate it higher. I feel like it could have been done. There could have been more. And I can't really explain myself. I wish there was just more to the movie. I'm not sure if it's because the ending felt rushed, but I just get that gut feeling, you know. Speaking of the ending was beautiful. And I have ideas on how I feel it could have been done better instead of just, them going into the sunset. But I won't dive into that. It's a fantastic send-off to the characters. I enjoyed it, and I might change my mind in the future, but for now, 3.5 out of 5. Star Trek Generations. I am mixed on this movie. On one hand, it's very realistic and touching, a touching send-off to Captain Kirk's character. And it also has a beautiful passing of the torch to the next captain. But on the other hand, everything with Data is something you find in like a Seth MacFarlane Star Trek parody show, with albeit a good intentioned plot, but it's so dumb with Data learning feelings, and it just feels out of place. Maybe that's the best way to describe this movie. One half is a beautifully shot and like genuinely solid action movie, and the other half is just out of place. I didn't hate it. It was good, but I gotta do it. 3 out of 5.
And you people, you're all astronauts on some kind of Star Trek.
Star Trek First Contact. I do like this one a lot, at least with the story. They have to travel back in time. No wonder I like it. Because the Borgs are trying to prevent first contact with Earth. I thought the story was fun. Data was less annoying. Data's the robot. I didn't explain in the previous Generations thing. Data's the robot, and he can't learn. He's slowly learning how to become human and not a robot. So, Data was less annoying because it's not just a blabbering robot. And we also find out that Data has a fully functional sexual organ. So that was fun, seeing seeing Data almost get hooked up. You're going to hear this for the next 2 reviews, but I just don't have a lot to say about this one. I enjoyed it I enjoyed it the most out of the 4 Star Trek Generation movies. 3.5 out of 5. Star Trek Insurrection. This one I can barely remember. I'm writing this review roughly 8 hours after I watched the movie, and I can tell you that it involves a man having his face stretched. Another case of enjoyable but doesn't bring a whole lot to the table. Just another story with the Next Generation cast. It really sucks too, because even though I wasn't a fan of the 5th one, 2 through 6, the Star Trek movies, 2 through 6, they were just pure joy. Like, they brought something, they made me happy watching them, and they were memorable, and they were, it was a nice action adventure. And then the Next Generation, when the old cast got replaced with the Next Generation, like, it just didn't hit, And even though this one has action and adventure, and even some very good special effects, it's just not as memorable, and not as fun. 3 out of 5. Star Trek Nemesis, and the final Star Trek movie in my collection. Another almost decent contender, but it drags on, and I just didn't care too much. And another movie where I'm writing this review maybe like 30 minutes after finishing, and I really have to think about what happened. A bit dramatic, but it's true. Captain Picard was cloned, and the clone is dying, and he needs Picard's blood to survive, and then they kill off Data. That's roughly it. Listen, it's not bad, it's fine. Special effects were once again very good, and I don't think it's deserving of a 2.5, but it's also not deserving of a 3. And if I was doing a 100% scale, like 10%, 20%, 30%, whatever, it'd be like a 55, just that in between sweet spot. But for the fact that it didn't stick with me, 2.5 out of 5. St. Elmo's Fire. There's so many movies that have done this genre so well. It's a coming-to-age story similar to American Graffiti, and it pretty much has the same cast as Breakfast Club. And both of those movies do what St. Elmo's Fire wanted to do 10 times better. It's not fair to compare movies, so other than the story not done well, the storytelling itself was just confusing. There was like 16 million different characters, they all had plots, which then it does all come together at the end, but usually there is an A plot and a B plot. Sometimes even a C plot, even a D plot, but I feel like there is up to like an E plot in this movie. There's so many things to keep track of. There are so many things to keep track of the moment a new scene came up. I didn't even care anymore. It's not that bad, but I didn't really enjoy it. 2.5 out of 5. Stepmom. Jesus. If this is what it's like to go through a divorce, I'm gonna fucking shoot myself. Firstly, it's alright. Secondly, everyone in this movie is just an asshole. Susan Sarandon, I love her. God bless her soul, but she did a couple asshole things. Ed Harris, asshole. The daughter, asshole. Julia Roberts, asshole. And at the end of the day, it almost made me tear up. But then I remembered everyone's an asshole. 3 out of 5. Submerged. In what we've reviewed this year in my VHS collection, I've so far decided Elektra is the worst superhero movie, Driven is the worst racing movie, Ocean's 11, the original, is the worst heist movie, Cannonball Run 2 is the worst comedy, and Hell's... what is that word? I misspelled so many things in this Fidgay. Brigade. Yes, Hell's Brigade is the worst war movie. Submerged Takes the Cake is probably the worst action movie that I have reviewed in my VHS collection so far. Not interesting. Steven Seagal is, well, he's an idiot. He talks like one and he acts like one, and I don't really care for it. 1.5 out of 5. Survivors. What a unique cast. There's Robin Williams, Walter Matthau from Grumpy Old Men, and Jerry Reed from Smokey and the Bandit. Well, what a boring comedy. It's funny to think about. Well, basically, it's funnier on paper than how it was actually executed. Robin and Walter have a beautiful dynamic at the very end of the movie. It feels like a father and son thing, but that's the only thing noteworthy about this movie. The 3 minutes of well-written dialogue. 2 out of 5. The 10 Commandments. Before I start, they keep saying Master Builder for the main dude building the monuments and all that, which I know Master Builder is an actual name for someone who constructs shit in Egypt, but I can't help but think of the Lego Movie, and it throws me off every time they say it. Well, what do I have to think of this 4-hour biblical epic? Well, I appreciate the growth of character of Moses, seeing him from a baby to a teen to an old man, and the special effects of God were cool, but man, this movie was a drag and a half. It was no way a terrible movie. I could totally see the historical and like the impact this movie made, but I don't really care. I sound like a jerk when I say it like that, but I just felt like I was in Bible school, and the whole year we learned about one thing when it really could have just been summed up into a week's worth of education. I would give it a 3.5 because I really do love the costume and set design, special effects and all that, but in terms of how I enjoyed it, 3 out of 5. They Call Me Bruce. The only significant thing I have to say about this movie is someone recorded over the tape for about 30 seconds. I wouldn't call this movie bad. There's definitely effort put into it, but it's not funny. Like, at all. and it's not interesting. 2 out of 5.
Liable to become famous. So few people can boast that they've lost a flying saucer and a man from Mars all on the same day. Wonder what they'd have done to Columbus if he'd discovered America and then mislaid it. Bunch of butterfingers.
The Thing. Listen, it's not The Thing from 1982. It's the usual horror B movie. However, it was still good. I enjoyed how different it was from the remake, or rather, I enjoyed the fact that the remake strived away from the original so much. The original decided to have the Thing be a regenerative human vegetable that thrives on blood, compared to the remake being a shapeshifter that thrives on blood. I think my main overall problem with the movie is that there's just far too many characters. I believe that what makes a horror movie scary is you need to know each character and what their motives are. Who they are. This is done so you can feel the fear with them or feel sad or scared when they die. That's usually why in horror the first kills in the movie are just random strangers. It's to get the point across of someone's out to get you, but we don't need to focus on who the enemy is killing in the moment. In the original Thing, there's at least 25 people. And one of the characters, besides being the typist and the love interest for the doctor, she literally just brings coffee to people. And I swear there was 5 other people who did nothing besides crack a few jokes. I don't care if they get attacked. It also prevents it from really being that scuzzy. It also prevents it from really being that scary. Other than that, enjoyable and a good 50s horror fright night. 3.5 out of 5. And that, my friends, was No Nut November. I don't got a lot else to say. I don't want to spoil, I don't want to ruin the magic of this. But I'm actually recording this November 28th. I'm actually done with my my VHS tapes. I finished it about a week ago, I'd like to say. Now the only thing we have to do is you guys got to wait for December. I'm excited to talk about just the aftermath of this series. Not what I'm gonna do in the future, but I've watched so many VHS movies, but I want to show everybody that we're really not that done with VHS tapes. But we'll get to that later. I don't know. I just like to ramble. I'll see everyone later. Bye bye. And